And today we're going to talk about super learning secrets, what the intellectual elite practice daily and how you can too. You know, I got into super learning way back when I was in my early 20s. And so we look at super learning. What is super learning? Super learning is using techniques and methodologies and technology that allows you to take in more information and to retain more of that information and how to apply that information. And the first thing that I would say, a couple things that would really enhance the learning process is the use of music. Also, what you focus on. And I would say, I'll put this into a couple categories, what and how, because I know there's a lot of people that are having challenges on how to. And then we look at, there's also memory enhancement, which is an area that I like to work on because, sometimes I struggle with names and things like that. So this is an area that I'm focusing on right now is memory enhancement, which is through associations. And that's basically how brain physiology works. Then there's also a thing that I think is really great for the executive type, also for athletes, which is called the powerful engagement. And this is basically how to create mini risks and how to set up your day and your business in a way that can really allow you to be engaged powerfully, and then how to recover. So let's go to that first. I'm going to start with the powerful engagement. So years ago, there were some scientific researchers that examined high-performance tennis players and determined which ones were actually better than the others. And what they found is like the top 20 athletes in tennis, they actually, if you looked at their skill set, some of the guys that were down in the 20 or 19 or 18 had actual individual skills that were better than the ones at number one. So they studied all this research and they thought, well, how does this all work? And they went through hours and hours of tapes for months and months and months. And what they noticed is that the top players were taking their tennis rackets. Get this. This is how, over a 3-hour match, they were taking their tennis racket and they were just putting it in the other hand in between the rally. So when the rally got over, they would instantly put this over. That would create what was called micro recovery. The other thing was, as after they hit the ball, they tend to look away for a second and then they would re-engage. Well, the developers of this technology, they developed a quadrant that allowed you to be at your most powerful optimal level, let's say here, as opposed to down here. So these are two positive states and these are negatives, and then you want it to be in this zone here. I won't go to the website and we'll share you the books and you can read this for yourself. I don't have time to go into all the details, but I think it's a great book to read, The Powerful Engagement. But basically, it's a way to keep yourself in the optimal zone. And just to give you, so you want the nuts and bolts, you could take, say, about 30-minute sessions of work. And so imagine being super focused for 30 minutes, and then you take a mini break of 5 to 10. Now, some people, this might go a little bit longer, so it could be up as high as, 55 or 45 or whatever, but 30 is a good one to start with. You do 30, and then you do something to totally disengage from your high output moment, and this allows you to kind of a micro recovery, just like the tennis players. Well, this is now becoming one of the techniques. So if you look at some of the leading institutions that are out there today in the electronics and digital world, they're creating whole centers where people hang out. They play ping pong. They have athletic facilities. They have specialized food places. They have social setups so that the workplace now allows people to recover properly so that they can be at the high performance level when they're at the focus level. And it's increasing productivity radically. I know places like Google do this. To give you an example, that they're using these type of techniques to optimize performance. And in today's world, it becomes really essential because it really comes down to what we're focused on. What are we focusing on and how are we focusing? And so, for example, I'll give you an example. Recently, I took a speed reading course. I took some speed reading. So speed reading allows you to take a special gaze to take in large amounts of data much faster than the old methodology of reading. So a quick tip, just to increase your reading, most time when you're reading, just increase your reading, like triple it in the next couple of days. instead of trying to follow the lines with your eyes, just do the lines like this. Like this. Run your finger, because your eyes will track movement much faster. So you can do that instantly. Just start tracking the lines like this. You'll read it, because what happens, the eyes jump back and forth, which slows down your reading comprehension and your speed. So what's interesting, as speed goes up, comprehension goes up, which is kind of like backwards to what we think. The other thing that you can do is you kind of go to accelerated things, is you can take a book and read through just look at the front, look at the back, the cover, look at the chapters, and you can go through this. This is something that Ty Lopez does. That he has a book a day. I love his club. And you just read the first page or two of every chapter on the first pass. So you read the titles, the back, you read the first page of every chapter, or the last page, or just pick a page that kind of draws to you. And then on the third run, you just read the first sentence out of every paragraph. And what they found is you're going to retain 85% of the information inside that book, but you're probably going to take a book that would take, maybe a week or two to read. You could probably read it in an hour using that technology, a couple 100-page book. Think about that. Imagine if you could read a whole book in an hour. What could that do for you in your life, for your health? And one of the things that I know that today we're getting hit with so much information, there's so much great information, is how do I increase it? So things like speed reading. Also, listening to Baroque music while studying. Okay, if you're studying for something, there is an aspect, and this is where I started out. There is a book called Superlearning, and you put Baroque music on, and basically the cycles of the music get your brain. We talked about the brain and those 4 states: alpha. Remember, we've got beta, theta, and delta. The 4 main states. There's also gamma. We'll put that down there. Not a lot of researchers on gamma too much, but maybe in the future. But through Baroque music, we're able to get out of these beta states, which are less productive as far as learning and comprehension, and get into the more alpha states or whatever, and that these things have positive effects inside your whole cellular physiology. The other thing is when we're talking with memory enhancement, if you look at the big memory courses out there, they're all about associations. Oh, I guess we got that written in there. So basically, if you have your neurons here, and your imagine this is inside your brain. Now you've got all these different neurons, and these are the dendrites and axons where they send neurochemistry blasts. You get these patterns where your thoughts or your feelings or your emotions. That's why it takes a certain amount of time to learn a motor skill. You build a neural pathway. You get a really solid connection here between your neurons. Okay? So what happens for memory association is that you'll use different things. So if you meet a person, you'll find out where they live, what's their name, what's their practice, what their kids are. And by associating all of these things with them, what happens is, interesting enough, you're able to remember things better. And I did this unconsciously in certain areas, and I didn't do it in other areas. And we all do this. And largely in part, that's because of maybe prior conditioning or emotional beliefs or limiting beliefs that we adopted because of that. We also talked about earlier, if you go back to one of the earlier lessons about neurofeedback, also using things like technologies that puts us into the optimal brain states, creating learning environments. But big and most important thing is taking mini rests, allowing both the eyes, the body, and the physiology so that you put high output very quick. You go through a recovery period, because what happens if you stay in this negative zone for too long, you become completely unproductive. And there's so many people that are caught in that loop. I mean, the average person looks at their cell phone 150 times a day. So 150 times a day. That's average. So some people are doing a lot more than that. So they're going back into this zone. This is not an optimal state. It's not a place of focus. It's not a place where you're going to kind of achieve these other levels. And if you want to perform at the highest levels, whether that's being an executive or managing, all the responsibilities of the home, using these techniques of Superlearning, we're going to actually interview a lot more hosts in these specific areas on the BiOptimizers website. So look for them upcoming. And we'll see you on the next lesson. I hope you enjoyed this one.